Are you ready? Okay, one person shaking their head. It wasn't rhetorical. Are you ready? Yes? No? Okay, so here's the thing. I say, are you ready? And your response is going to fall into one of two categories. It's going to fall into the category of yes, maybe, no, I don't know. Because you're assuming you know what I'm asking you to be ready for. You don't, by the way. But you're assuming you do, or you think you do, right? So you think there's an appropriate answer to the question. Or you fall into the category of your immediate response is going to be one of the following or all of the following questions. For what? How long do I have to be ready? When is it? So it's going to be one of those two categories. Now, I'm gratified that you wanted to respond yes or no in the first category right away because you thought you knew what I was talking about. And I could have been talking about, are you ready for lunch? Because it's a soup and a bun day here, so, or you might be going, and I'm getting, Marion is shaking her head, so apparently lunch isn't ready. But are you ready for this message to be 45 minutes long? Are you ready for it to end now? Don't answer that one. Are you ready for whatever it is that you've planned for this afternoon? Are you ready for whatever it is you've planned for dinner or for tomorrow or for the next day? Have you planned the rest of your life yet? Are you ready? So here we are at the beginning of Advent. It's the first Sunday of Advent. We've been really smart about Advent. We've broken it down into 4 sections. And we've given each Sunday a theme. You might also have a calendar, an Advent calendar, which has probably 24 little boxes on it, or 24 little doors behind which is hidden a piece of chocolate. There's lots of different things. I actually had a Lego one last year. You get a little thing of Lego that you have to put together behind each door, right? Apparently there's beer and cheese ones now. Yep, different beer and cheese every day. That's a lot of beer. Isn't it, Ben? We were talking about it the other day. But there's all sorts of them now where you get these, it's an Advent calendar. What's the point of an Advent calendar? It counts down the days. To what? So we have Advent all figured out because it's about counting down the days to Christmas. We got it. Except that's not it at all. That's the thing we've done with Advent is we've turned Advent into this way of literally counting down the days, or how many sleeps till Christmas. Because we know when Christmas is. It's the 25th of December. So we can plan for that. This is our life. We know when stuff is, so we prepare for it appropriately, often at the last minute and show up late. But still, we prepare, we know when it is, and so we prepare. We have a vague idea of what it is too, so we know what to prepare for. If you go camping, I don't know why you would, but if you go camping, you know what to take, right? You know what stuff to pack. If you're going to, say it's, I don't know, the beginning of December here, and you're going to, I don't know, Arizona or Mexico or, one of those lovely vacation spots that ministers never get to go to. If you're going somewhere like that, you know what to pack, right? And it's not going to be your winter clothes, right? Although if it's the summer and say you're going to the Yukon or something like that, you might then pack some winter clothes. Or say it's the beginning of December and you're going to Iceland. I don't know why, but you might. Go when it's nicer is what I'm saying. But you know what to do. When it's this time of the year, for instance, drive any great distance or you spend time on the highway, people usually prepare for that, right? So you got not only have snow tires, you might have a kit, right? In your trunk, a spare blanket, stuff like that in your vehicle. You prepare for stuff, and we know what to prepare for. Except, the thing about Advent is that it's actually asking you to prepare for something you don't know, and you don't know when it is. See, Advent isn't just about celebrating an event that occurred in the past. That's why we have the 25th of December. We have set a date. The odds of it actually being exactly the right date, by the way, are remote to non-existent. But we've set a date on which we are going to celebrate an event which occurred in the distant past, the very distant past. So much different past that you can't probably calculate the exact date anyway, because we've changed calendars and we've done all sorts of stuff since then. But we're marking an event in the past. Jesus was here, and then he left. So, Christmas Day celebrates the birth of Jesus in the past. It also, though, reminds us that we should be looking for Jesus in the present. And how does it do that? Well, it reminds us we should be looking for Jesus in the present because that same Jesus that is born on Christmas Day, whose birth we celebrate, we talk about him the rest of the year. And we hopefully learn from Jesus to live a life of love and caring and compassion and grace. Doesn't always go very well, and it's very hard, but we try to do that the rest of the year. In order to do that, Jesus constantly, I think, reminded us that the love of present everywhere. So you should be able to see Jesus in the person sitting next to you. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Yeah. Just looking around the room. No, that's the point. You're supposed to be able to see Jesus in each other. And this is the even harder part. You're supposed to be able to see Jesus in you. Because Jesus is love. The love of God. In fact, when we celebrate that moment in the distant past when Jesus was born, we celebrate the birth of, according to the Gospel of Mark, the Son of God. According to the Gospels of Matthew and Luke, the Messiah. According to John, the Word made flesh. God come among us. And part of what that reminds us of is that God is in all of us, in all of creation. You should be able to see Jesus in the person next to you. You should be able to see Jesus in a person that you meet on the street. You should be able to see Jesus everywhere. That's really hard sometimes. It's sometimes really hard because of what we're looking at, and it's sometimes really hard because of how we perceive what we're looking at. But you should be able to see Jesus in everyone, and especially when you look in the mirror. So Christmas doesn't just remind us of that moment in the distant past. It reminds us that in the present, Jesus is still among us. Here's where it gets really problematic for lots of people and is a huge struggle for a lot of people. Jesus said he was coming back. And when he comes back, a whole bunch of stuff is going to happen. And at least according to Matthew, it's all bad. Right? It's not just the apocalyptic stuff. I mean, think about the way Jesus, speaking in Matthew, talks about his return. Like a thief in the night. Why would you want to be ready for Jesus to return as a thief in the night? How is that a positive image? You don't want him to let him in. Wait, we're supposed to let Jesus in. That's what Christmas is about. Open your heart to the love of God. But if Jesus is coming like a thief in the night, why would I want to let him in? He's just going to take stuff, drink my beer, make a mess in my house. Why would I want to let him in? So you could very easily dismiss that image, and you could very easily say, "No, I believe I'm going to understand this as simply being open to Jesus returning. We don't know when, but we need to be ready for that." But now you have a problem. Because your problem is, how do you prepare? How do you prepare for something that you don't know how it's really going to happen because you're not buying that whole cataclysmic, world's ending, Jesus comes like a thief in the night thing? And you don't know when. In fact, the first Christians really struggled with this because they interpreted all of this as, right now, in my lifetime, Jesus is coming back. And then he didn't. It gets even worse because, of course, lots of stuff that you might describe as being apocalyptic, like, say, the destruction of the temple in Jerusalem and a rebellion being put down very dramatically by the Romans, might fall into the category of all that bad stuff. And that happened in 70 AD. And so all of those early days Christians were kind of thinking, okay, the apocalypse part's happened. Where's Jesus? You can even see in the writing of Paul, it was earlier than that, how Paul, sort of in the later things that he writes, starts to hedge his bets a bit and starts to talk a little differently. And by the second century, church leaders are all talking about, well, Jesus didn't mean right away. In fact, see, Jesus said, you won't know when. So it could be any time. So be ready. Could be any time. Could be tomorrow. Could be right now. So there's two ways that you can hear that. One is, oh, I'm not ready. Or you can hear it as, okay, so Jesus is going to come at a time when we won't know. It's going to be a little bit of a surprise. It's going to be kind of like, say you're sitting at home in the middle of the night and somebody tries to break into your house. That's a bit of a surprise, I imagine. Yes, it is, by the way. It is a surprise. Are you ready? How do you be ready for that? If Jesus is coming back, first of all, how do you be ready? And secondly, if Jesus is coming back, how am I supposed to be ready if I don't know when? Does this mean I just need to be like at DEFCON 4 all the time? Well, actually, yes, is the answer to that question. But more importantly, how do you be prepared? This is where we need the adult Jesus every other day of the year. Because it's the adult Jesus that prepares you. All that stuff about loving your neighbor, loving your enemy. Love your neighbor as yourself. All that stuff about caring for the poor and the sick, having compassion for those who've been marginalized, welcoming them back, embracing your enemy, all that stuff, that's how you prepare. Living out the love that's in your heart already, that's how you prepare. See, again, let me remind you, Jesus didn't ask for us to live perfectly, just to try to live out the love we already have, the love that's already in you. We're created in the image of God, remember. Love and light life is in all things. That's how you be prepared. So I know I've mentioned this before, but it's childhood memories. When I was a kid in Toronto, every time you drove to downtown Toronto, like down by the lakeshore, from the East End, you'd have to go an overpass over the Don Valley. And there's a huge sign that would appear there for years and years. It was a landmark, and the sign said, Christ is called Jim, and a phone number. And as a little kid, I used to always think, Jim knows when Christ is coming. He knows. I bet you can call that number, and a voice on the other end of the line is going to go, December 25th, and a year. That's not what happens, by the way, if you called that number, which you can't anymore because it's long gone. But if you call, it's a church, right? Jim wants you to go to his church. And he's absolutely right. Christ is coming. It's us that assumed he knew when. But the thing is, we always perceive that in the context of those huge apocalyptic images of the destruction of all things before the good thing. Even if you understand that, like the book of Revelation, even if you understand it as it's about the hope, right? The new beginning that comes after, like Star Wars. It's about the new beginning, not the end. Even if you're open to understanding that way, we still got to have that huge universe-ending cataclysm. But what if it isn't about the universe that's out there? What if it's about the universe that's in here? What if it's about just you, not everyone? I know Jesus shares this with the community, but what if he's actually just talking to everyone individually? In other words, what if it's about living a life that prepares us to meet Jesus again when we leave this life? Not that it's a world out there ending event, but it's our world, our own individual world. So it becomes more about how you prepare for that, because you don't know when that is either, right? So how do you prepare for that? Well, again, thank you, adult Jesus. By living the love that each of us has to share. There's nothing easy about that. Sometimes it's difficult. Sometimes it's super easy. But we're prepared by living a life that is life-giving. That's what all this stuff at the beginning of Advent's about. We go into Advent thinking that we're counting down the days to Christmas. And in fact, hope, peace, and joy, that's a lovely way of doing it, because that is what Christmas is all about. In fact, hope, peace, and joy are wrapped up in love, which is what Christmas is all about. So whoever thought of this idea was really smart and put it in exactly the right order. It's awesome. Counts us right down to Christmas. Except, you would then think that over the Sundays leading to Christmas, we would be hearing stories about, the angel visiting Mary, the angel that then visited Joseph, the journey to Bethlehem, the shepherds. And we kind of all save that right to the end. Instead, what we start out with at the beginning of Advent is, it's all going to end. We needed to have the bonus reading this morning. We needed that. Because we needed to hear the prophet Isaiah offer hope. And by the way, that's from the very beginning of Isaiah. And so there's a lot of really bad stuff that's going to come after that before he comes back to the hope, somewhere around chapter 40. But we get this awesome image of there's going to be a place on a high mountain where everyone will come to learn how to live with each other. It's called a church. No, that's not true. That's not in the story, but there's a way. That's why we gather together, right? In all of our different churches, in all of our different places. It's sometimes why we gather together even in small groups that aren't associated with religion in any way. We're creating community. We're learning how to be with each other. That's the image that Isaiah has got. That we're all going to come together and learn how to live the plowshares, right? The swords into plowshares. We're going to not need weapons because we'll all be doing stuff together and helping the earth grow and all that stuff. It's awesome. And then we had to listen to Jesus say, it's all going to end. So you better be ready. So we needed a few words of hope from Paul. Although, to be fair, he did end off that little bit by saying, you should avoid all the things to do with the flesh. But so leave out all the good stuff. But again, words of hope about the future, about who we are and how we are together. Advent isn't just about counting down the days to this Christmas or the Christmas of the past. It's about reminding us how we live in all the days, that we be ready. Not just to meet Jesus in the end, but to meet Jesus every day. The Jesus we learned from and the Jesus in the past. And we do that with the stories we share. We share stories of hope and peace and joy and love. And we learn from them. We learn from them how to be who we are. Are you ready? I should get a yes from everybody. You should, yes, you are. The thing we should really be most ready for is to not that we're ready for that final moment, but we're ready for the journey that's ahead. We got to get there yet. Are you ready? I'm just going to assume a yes. Can I get an amen at least? Can I get an amen? Thank you.